The spa at Vals in the Grisons canton of Switzerland, built by Peter Zumthor between 1993 and 1996. Nestled in the heart of a pleasant valley, the village of Vals has been exploiting a hot water spring since the last century. The Valser Wasser, bottled by this factory, is sold throughout the country. In the 1960s, a German property developer built a hotel complex with 270 rooms spread between 5 buildings. He even planned to build an airport. Instead, he went bankrupt. In 1986, the village bought up the hotels and decided to build a hydrotherapy center to attract a new clientele. The members of the commission nominated by the village to oversee the new project had no preconceived ideas about the shape or function of the building. Only one thing was certain: it would be located between the 5 existing hotel buildings at the very source of the spring. The commission, including a local quarry operator, the forest warden, the manager of the ski lifts, and a worker at the bottling factory, would turn out to be what architects call a strong customer. Rejecting the ideas of civil engineering firms in Zurich, it took the risk of putting the village in debt to the tune of millions and of picking an architect who had virtually never built anything, Peter Zumthor.
Und dann kam dann langsam die Idee, dass wenn wir das Baden an diesem Ort...
It slowly dawned on me that if you reconsider the idea of bathing, and if you think of the hot spring, you can design a building that is more in harmony with the topography and geology of a place, and not just with the immediate aspect of its surroundings.
Mit dem formalen Aussehen des unmittelbaren Nachbars. Das heißt, irgendwann entsteht dann die Idee zu sagen, das ist ein Bad.
The idea came to me of a bath born of the mountains, just like the hot spring is born of the mountains. The water gushes out there, and that also has its dimension in geological time. I don't know exactly, but we know that there are millions of years behind this.
Das heißt, das gab uns die Möglichkeit, eine Haltung.
So, that gives us the possibility of thinking that this building has always been there, before all the others.
Bevor alle anderen Bauten gebaut wurden, so.
To avoid spoiling the view of the guests in the main hotel, the commission refused to allow the architect to build upwards. He responded to this imperative by sinking his building into the slope. The flat roof, covered with grass, makes the building blend in with the landscape. Only the geometrical pattern reveals its presence. The only facade of the spa facing the mountain is built in stone, gneiss from the local quarry, used for centuries now for the roofs of chalets in Vals. A crystalline stone that can be worked in thin slabs and stands up well to differences in temperature. The facade is interrupted by wide openings, windows and terraces. No doors. To enter the building, you have to use the main hotel and follow a corridor in the basement that passes through the mountain. The spa area revolves around two large, irregularly shaped pools, one in the center of the building, the other in the open air. With its high walls, the outer pool seems to be carved out of the mountain. Flat stones and benches just below the surface make it look like a natural pool, a pool fed by the hot spring, at 32 degrees centigrade, just like the indoor pool. Moving from one to the other means passing from an open space to a more intimate space with its play of shadows and light. The spa can accommodate 150 people, hotel guests with free access, the village inhabitants with privileged access, and day visitors. A new and younger clientele, less well off, comes to vows to relax, rest, and attain a certain physical well-being, rather than seek a cure from the waters.
Meine Art des Architekturmachens oder Erfindens.
My way of inventing architecture always begins with a strong image, not just an idea.
Starken Bild, nicht nur mit einer Idee, also es ist immer eine Idee.
The idea is always accompanied by a powerful image and the visualization of a bodily or physical event.
Physikalischen Ereignisses.
It's not an abstract idea.
Abstrakte Idee. Und diese ersten Bilder, die sind
These first images are naive in an almost childlike way.
naiv.
I love
Die sind
them.
mir auch lieb. Und dann im ganzen Weg der
During the
Entwicklung
whole process of the building's development, I make sure that this image becomes architecture.
schauen, dass auf der einen Seite das geschieht automatisch, dieses Bild entwickelt
A
sich
self-defining form of architecture.
eigentlich und zu einer eigenständigen Architektur. In diesem Fall war die erste Idee,
In this particular case, the first idea was to open up the mountain and create a quarry, thereby imaging a quarry where blocks of stone still remained, and where you could dig down.
von oben nach unten Höhlen
You could also dig to the side, and what remains are roofs or fragments of roofs.
Dachpartien stehen.
The facade, with its alternating full and empty spaces, reveals the construction style of the building as a whole. It's made up of 15 or so simple units, stone parallelepipeds. These units are all different. Each one has a large outcropping roof section. The overhanging concrete slab is held in the horizontal position by metal cables that carry the strain to the ground. The tie beams are invisible, cast in a second layer of concrete or held in concrete between two layers of stone in the unit walls. The roofs covering the whole developed site fit together like a puzzle, while the smaller units beneath them don't quite fill the whole surface area. The freed space allows for movement throughout the building. The units also form the facade. None of the roof sections touch each other. The pieces of the puzzle are separated by 8-centimeter gaps. Glass joints protect the building from any infiltration. Inside the building, this creates a dual impression. The roof seems very heavy, yet each section of it, edged by lines of light, seems to float in midair. In each unit, Peter Zumthor has created a surprise. Firstly, through the intimate volumes that contrast with the bulky aspect of the exterior. Then, through the use of color, with tinted concrete for the walls and a terrazzo floor that breaks with the gray stone of the main body of the building. And finally, through a relationship with water that is unique each time, the architect creates a single sensation in each block. For example, heat, in other words 42 degrees centigrade, the temperature of the water on the skin, is associated with the color red. In the other units, you can find swirling water, water with flower petals. You can taste the water, listen to the music of the stones, have a steam bath, or take a cold plunge at 14 degrees. From one block to the next, the spa's users invent their own itinerary and discover all the experiences of water in a freely chosen order.
Architektur hat einen Körper und dieser Körper
Architecture has a body.
ist physikalisch.
This body is physical. It is present. What interests me is concrete architecture.
Konkrete Architektur. Die virtuelle Architektur auf Papier oder
Virtual architecture on paper or on a screen, it doesn't interest me.
Überhaupt nicht, oder vielleicht als Idee oder so. Also ich finde es unglaublich, Räume zu haben.
Or as an idea, perhaps, I find it incredible to have spaces that have presences or atmospheres that are surrounded with specific materials, where the shell of the building is like an instrument.
Ein Instrument.
Using these 5-meter-high units, the architect creates a landscape of cliffs and fault lines, alignments of volume out of scale with human size. These vast stone walls are not blank, smooth blocks. The methodical stacking of slabs of different heights forms them. 60,000 carved stones, 1 meter long, 60 kilometers of stone. Each bed of stone runs the length of the building at the same height. Each slab seems to have a different thickness. The order in which they are stacked could seem haphazard. This is merely an illusion. It's actually the arrangement of 3 elements of varying thickness, but whose total is always 15 centimeters. The permutations in the order of these elements are enough to create great visual variety without necessarily complicating construction. Peter Zumthor has created a vast symphony in stone, but the body of man marks out its time. Smaller than these huge cliffs, we are reassured by these thin layers of stone that we could grasp in our hands. Much more than an artistic effect, it's a staging effect, the staging of our position in the scale of the universe. By repeating this confrontation that places us almost naked before the spectacle of the mountains, the architect forces us to face what surpasses us.
Baden.
Bathing becomes an almost mystical or mythological ritual of cleansing and relaxation.
Und Entspannung.
You find this in the Christian faith with its baptism.
Da spürt man das noch ein bisschen so mit Taufe und so. Darum man verwandelt
You undergo a change by removing your everyday
Kleider
clothes.
aus und macht einen fast rituellen Ort, wo man sich
And this is a ritual setting where you strip and come into a new world of stone and skin,
eine Welt, wo es so um Haut und
of water at different temperatures,
Wasser in verschiedenen Temperaturen und Licht in verschiedenen
of
Licht
light,
und Schatten und Wasser
acoustic
und
effects,
verschiedene
and different
Akustik,
surfaces that you feel on your
Oberflächen,
skin.
die man auf der Haut empfindet und so weiter. Dass dies ein ungeheurer Reichtum ist, der
An
aber auch nicht
unbelievable richness.
formal,
On a formal level, everything is simple
sehr
and essential.
einfach und wesentlich sein kann. Ja?
Part stone, part water, every experience of the building is marked by this alternation of austerity and sensuality. The immobility of the straight, parallel lines, and the shimmering of the water in its reflections, between monochromatic gray and the play of the light. At night, the opposite holds true. The light shines from the water. In the pools, as in the units, everything seems possible.
Also ich persönlich glaube, dass wenn menschliche
I believe that human effort can bring a work,
Werk hervorbringt, einen Roman oder ein Gedicht
a
oder ein
novel, a poem,
Streichquartett,
or a string quartet to life.
dass das im Glücksfall eine eigene Welt, einen eigenen Kosmos
When
bildet
it succeeds,
und
this
ein
creates a separate
besonderes
world, a
Verstehen
cosmos, and this gives rise to a
aufbaut
particular understanding,
oder eine
an
besondere
emotion that
Sicht
forms
und
a
ein
whole.
besonderes Gefühl aufbaut, in sich geschlossen von etwas, in das ich dann eindringe. Und wenn ich in das eindringen kann, und wenn mir das gefällt und
I enter it
zusagt,
when I feel like it.
dann komme ich wie in einem guten Film für
As a
1,5
wonderful
Stunden
film,
in eine
I
ganz
enter a
spezifische
specific
Welt
world that
geprägt
bears the imprint of
von
someone who invented,
jemandem, der
thought,
das für mich
and felt it for me.
erdacht, erfunden und erfüllt hat. So. Und das ist für mich eine schöne
That's a fine definition
Definition
of
von
architecture.
dass so was geschieht,
It
wenn
provides
es
freedom.
Freiheit belässt, aber das ist eine Ambivalenz.
The architect wanted to suspend time, but the clients insisted on having a clock. 3 months after the opening of the spa, Peter Zumthor gave in and installed 2 slender brass posts whose tops, barely bigger than a watch, allow the anxious bather to check the time. The final step in this project, where the architect invented the program for the building and the building for the program. Like a demiurge, the architect has created a world where the 5 senses are solicited. Each effect works as part of the whole, blowing hot and cold, blending the intimate and the sublime. The richness of the staging conceals great mystery beneath its apparent simplicity. It's hard to escape the architect's presence here.